ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते नारायणाय। ॐ नमो भगवते नारायणाय। शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। अनन्तसंसारसमुद्रतार नौकायिताभ्यां गुरुभक्तिदाभ्यां वैराग्यसाम्राज्यपूजनाभ्यां नमो नमः श्री गुरुपादुकाभ्याम्। अञ्जनानन्दनं वीरं जानकी शोकनाशनं कपीशमोक्षहन्तारं वन्दे लङ्काभयङ्करम्। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। यदङ्घ्रिपङ्केरुहरेणुलग्नं निपीयनीरं विमलान्तरङ्गः जानामि तत्त्वं निजमात्मरूपम्। जानामि तत्त्वं निजमात्मरूपम्। तं नौमि नारायणतीर्थमार्यं। तं नौमि नारायणतीर्थमार्यम्। Namaskaram. Welcome to the 65th session of Krishna Leela Tarangini, which happens to be the 5th session on Rasa Leela. As I mentioned, Narayana Tirtha had dedicated one full Tarangam, that is Tarangam 8, out of 12 Tarangams which he composed for Krishna Leela Tarangini, entirely for Rasa Leela. So he did an elaborate treatment, and thereby you will see a number of sessions on Rasa Leela alone, as opposed to Narayana Bhattadri, who only spent about 5 dasakams out of 100 dasakams on Krishna Leela. In other words, the life of Krishna. In the previous session, we enjoyed the Gopika Geetam, a masterpiece benediction by Sukha, through the exalted Gopiis, and we also touched upon the supreme nature of Sharanagati by the Gopiis, as Sri Krishna himself acknowledged that to Uddhava. In the process, we reviewed some references and the distinction between Bhakti and Sharanagati or Prapatti. As shown in the most authentic version of Tarangini, which I briefly clarified earlier, there is an apparent irregularity in sequence in Tarangam. I call it apparent. Based on slokams 184 and 185 and Geetam 76, which we all listened to in the last session, any listener or any reader would normally assume that since Krishna had reappeared before, the pining gopis at their behest as well as their repeated pleas. The songs of viraha and lamentations praying for the return of their Krishna would have ended or would not be any more necessary, and that the gopis would have resumed the Rasalila from that point. On the contrary, Sri Narayana Tirtha seemed to enjoy the gopis' lamentations through multiple benedictions, which apparently encouraged him to do greater praise and benedictions, and thus Tirtha continues the slokams 186 and 187 and Geetam 77 as though Krishna had not reappeared before the gopis and that the gopis were still crying, lamenting, and singing the glory of Krishna as well as complaining about his heartless disappearance. In slokams 186 and 187, Tirtha imagines a special scene when gopis were trying to identify the footprints of a girl besides the footprints of Madhava, the great Krishna. Let us listen to the slokam from Narayana Tirtha, slokam number 186, and then take up the review.
Madhava Charana Saroji Madhava Charana Saroji Madhava Charana Saroji Vanabhui Sikata Surekayanumite Drishtva Tadanuchatanvaya Sharano Kasya iti tarapragu
Madhava Charana Saroje Vanabhuvi Sikatasu Rekeyanamite Drishtva Tadanucha Tanvyascharanau Kasya iti itaraha prahuhu. Tirtha says the gopis, when they were searching for Krishna, found on the sandbanks distinct impressions of the lotus feet of Madhava. How did they know? Because they were aware of how the Krishna's footprints would be. But they were also pretty curious as well as anxious that along with those sand imprints of Madhava, they saw those of slender lady. In other words, there were other footprints. There were 4 footprints, 2 belonging to Madhava and 2 belonging to a lady who either followed or went besides or sometimes went before Madhava, typically most of the time following Madhava's imprints. The gopis started asking one another as to whose footprints they could be, because they were looking around and seeing most of the familiar faces for each one of them, who were very much aware of who the other person is, and they never suspected any of them. They said this is a very unique situation. Some unique gopi must have really taken Madhava aside. Sukha Brahmam explains to Parikshit the curiosity of the gopis that turned into jealousy and anguish. That was the root cause for Narayana Tirtha going into that slokam. Sukha says, Evam Krishnam Puchamana Vrindavana Latastarun Yachakshata Vanodhese Padani Paramatmanaha. While the gopis were thus imitating Krishna's Leelas and asking Vrindavana's creepers and trees where Krishna, the Supreme Soul, might be, they happened to see his footprints in a corner of the forest. Padani Viktam Etani Nandasunoho Mahatmanaha Lakshantehi Dvajamboja Vrajankusha Yavadibihi. The gopis said to one another, look at these, the marks of a flag, lotus, thunderbolt, elephant goad, barley corn, and so forth on these footprints clearly distinguish them as belonging to the great soul, the son of Nanda Maharaja. Taistaihi padaistat padavim anvichantyo agrato bhalaha vadvaha padaihi supraktani vilokyartaha samabhruvan. The gopis began following Krishna's path wherever the footprints were leading them to, as shown by his many footprints. But when they saw that these prints were thoroughly intermixed with those of the dearest consort, because they assumed that girl must be very close to Krishna, so intensely devoted, at the same time being specially treated by Krishna, so jealousy also cropped in, because they felt that the footprints were not all the time two of them following the larger footprints. These two footprints were almost getting admixtured, sometimes beside, sometimes very close to Krishna's footprints, so their perturbance really became more and more as they saw the way the footprints were, and spoke as follows. Kasyaha padani chaitani yataya nandasununa amsanyasta prakroshtaya karenoho karinayatha. The gopis said, here we see the footprints of some gopi who must have been walking along with the son of Nanda. He must have put his arm on her shoulder, just as a bull elephant rests his trunk on the shoulder of an accompanying cow elephant. All the imaginations of these gopis who were jealous and angry and anxious, they come out. This is how Shuka explained to Parikshit. Let us now listen to Sloka 187 from Tirtha. And then, before we go to the song, let us also go through this sloka a little more closely.
Kachit gopi kanagalatika kantirantadihinam Kachit gopi kanagalatika kanti andadihinam Kantam swantastitum anugatam Kamakamam Sriyacharya Lakshmi Kritya Srutiriva Paranandamurtim Pragalbha Nrityanti Gayati iti Prakriti Paradaram Mrugyamanam Mukundam Nrityanti Gayati iti Prakriti Paradaram Mrugyamanam Mukundo Mukunda
Kachit gopi kanakalatika kantihi antadihinam kantam swantastitam anugatam kamakamam sriyascha Lakshmi Kritya Srutiriva Paranandamurtim Pragalbha Nrityanti Gayati iti Prakriti Parataram Mrugyamanam Mukundam. One of the gopis with the radiance of a creeper spun of gold, Kanakalatika Kantihi, danced boldly and sang of Mukunda. Nrityanti Gayati iti, fixing him in her mind as do the scriptures. Prakriti Parataram. Prakriti is nature with three constituent qualities, as you know, or three gunas. Sattva, which is purity, Rajas, which is passion, and Tamas, which is darkness. Kamakamam is the echo of a phrase originally from Sukha in Srimad Bhagavatam, because if you remember in Gopika Geetam, he was, in the prelude, he was saying, Sakshat Manmata Manmataha. Tasam Avira Bhuchaurihi Swayamana Mukhambujaha Pitambara Dara Shragvi Sakshat Manmata Manmataha. Krishna is one who even bewildered Manmata. Manmata is usually the one who bewilders and confuses people. But this Krishna is thousands and thousands of crores of Manmata, shaking Manmata to his bones. Sakshat Manmata Manmataha. That's how he appeared. You may also remember Narayana Bhattadiri following on Sukha calling Krishna Jagatrayi Mohana Mohanatma, a form that charms even the god of love, who himself charms the three worlds. Now it is Narayana Tirtha's turn, using the word Kama Kamam, the fellow who creates Kama in the minds of Kaman himself. Let us listen to the song Nanda Mukunde Paramanande Vayamiha Kimu Mrugayama.
Nanda Mukunde Paramanande, Nanda Mukunde Paramanande, Vayamiha Kimu Mrugayama. Nanda Mukunde Paramanande, Vayamiha Kimu Mrugayama. Nanda Mukunde Paramanande, Vayamiha Kimu Mrugayama. Viharati Gope Gadabhavatape, Viharati Gope Gadabhavatape, Kamanusarati Durape, Vachitavanide Kritavanide, Vachitavanide Kritavanide, Nija Kadaya Suvivate, Nija Kadaya Suvivate. Nanda Mukunde Paramanande, Vayamiha Kimu Mrugayama. Mukunda Vayamiha Kimu Mrugayama. Amrutakalayam Ativimalayam, Amrutakalayam Ativimalayam, Acharya Vibhuti Nidane, Acharya Vibhuti Nidane, Swasukaratayam Aditaranayam, Swasukaratayam Aditaranayam, Anupamamiga Ramamani, Nanda Mukunde Paramanande, Vayamiha Kimu Mrugayama. Krita Jagadande Sukachita Gande, Sakala Jagat Pradibhane, Shuddhi Varigide Maradanubhute, Nija Sukha Saditamani, Navasi Sadose Manasi Chidose, Pashyati Vitatam Ashesham, Prakriti Kritadim Rataturagada, Bhanu Samaya Kritaveye, Nanda Mukunde Paramanande, Vayamiha Kimu Mrugayama. Manasi Viline Gatavadimane, Kalayati Radhimika Deve, Nijapadakataya Sukruti Bhimataya, Sakagata Nijaparambhabe, Apagatagame Jagadavirame, Jadaja Samadhavirane, Asukritavame Vikalita Bhime, பீதபவன ரவித்தோமே நந்தமுகுந்த பரமானந்த கிமு மிருகயாம ವ್ಯವಹೃತಿಯೀನೆ ಮಗದಡಿದಾನೆ ಕೂಡಲಯಾದಿ ಸಮಾನೆ ಪ್ರಣವಗುರಿಯೇ ಶಿವಪದಮೇ ನಾರಲಯ ಪರಿವಾನೆ ವಿಗತ ಕಳಂಗೆ ಪರಿಹೃತಜಂಗೆ ಗಣಿತ ಬರಬೇದೆ ವಿನಿಗಿತ ಜೋಗೆ ಕೃತ ಪರಿಪಗೆ ಗೋಪವಧೂ ಜನಮೋರೆ ನಂದ ಮುಕುಂದ ಪರಮಾನಂದೆ ಸದಸದತೀತಂ ಸದಗವಿಭಾತಂ ಸದಸದತೀತಂ ಕೇಶವ ಪಾದತರಭಾವಂ ಅನುಪರಿಗೀತಂ ನಿಗಮಸಮೇಯಂ ನಾರಾಯಣದೀತೆ ನೇನೋ ನಂದಮುಕುಂದ ಪರಮಾನಂದೆ ವಯಮಿಗ ಮೃಗಯಾಮ ವಯಮಿಗ ಕಿಮು ಮೃಗಯಾಮ ವಯಮಿಗ ಕಿಮು ಮೃಗಯಾಮ
Nanda Mukunde Paramanande Vayamiga Mrugayama. One gopi tells the other gopi, shall we look here for Mukunda, the son of Nanda, one who bestows supreme bliss? She points to one place, and the other gopi points to a different place. Let us walk there and find out whether Krishna is there. So each one is talking to one another, pointing to a direction, saying, we will start looking around there. But suddenly this gopi becomes so excited and starts singing with pretty great Vedantic sentiments, according to Narayana Tirtha. We saw now the apparent or word by word meaning in the form of a slide, but due to paucity of time, we would only take selective phrases and start explaining them. But this remarkably explicit song is one of Vedanta Saram, as usual with Tirtha. Whenever he uses one of his characters, especially the highly evolved Gopiis, whom according to Tirtha are the best to talk about Vedanta. Whatever benedictions he did through somebody, and especially through Gopiis, he used some very high sounding expressions directly taken as quotes from Veda and Upanishads. Let us see the purport of each such special praise or expression with limited Vedantic analysis. In the second stanza, we see a coinage, Amrita Kalayam Ati Vimalayam Achala Vibhuti Nidane. Tirtha observed that Sri Krishna is seated on the asana made of the blemishless Amrita Chandrakala, following Krishna's advice to Uddhava in Srimad Bhagavatam, as you may have seen in the 11th canto, 14th chapter. There are two beautiful slokas where Krishna directs Uddhava how to meditate. In sloka 37, Krishna says to Uddhava, Karnikayam nesayat Surya Somagnim Uttarottaram Vanni Madhye Smarayat Rupam Mamaitadu Dhyana Mangalam. How to meditate? For your question, let me answer. One should meditate first on the sun, moon and fire, but placing them one after the other within the whole of the lotus flower. What is the lotus flower? In your heart. Go back into focus thinking about sun, moon, and fire, and concentrate on the lotus flower, Padmam. Placing my transcendental form within the fire that you are going to meditate, one should meditate upon that form only, seated on Amrita Chandrakala as the auspicious goal of all meditation. Pannimadye smare drupam mamaitadu dhyana mangalam. In the 4th, 5th, and 6th stanzas, Tirtha elaborately and eloquently describes Avyakritam. Avyakritam is creation, Jagra, Swapna, Sushupti states, and also Paramatma Tattva. In the 4th sloka, which you saw, Nabasi Sadamse, Manasi Chidamse, Pashyati Vidatamasesham, Prakriti Kritadim, Rata Turagadav, Bhana Samaya Krita Veshe. That was the 4th stanza of Tirtha. Part of the Sat of Brahman is manifested in Akasha, and part of the Chit is manifested in mind. Without exception, whatever is manifested by Prakriti, in other words, whatever is visible as appearing, so appears only when Brahman's light falls on it. He is the only witness to these manifestations because the rest is unmanifest. Prakriti Kritadim Rata Turagadav Bhana Samaya Krita Veshe Pashyati Vidatamasesham Navasi Sadamse Manasi Chidamse. Where does the Pramanam come from for this particular grand expression by Tirtha? It comes from Mundaka Upanishad. Tapasa chiyate brahma tato annam abhijayate. Annat prano manas satyam loka karmasu chamritam. By tapas, Brahman increases in size and from it, Anna is produced. From Anna or the food, the prana is produced. From prana, the mind, the bhutas, the worlds, karma, and with it, its fruits. Annam here means that which is eaten or even enjoyed. That is, the unmanifested Avyakritam, common to all in samsara, is produced in the state fit for emancipation. And in the next stanza, Tirtha says, Manasi viline gatavati mane, kalayati ratimika deve, Nijapada Gataya, Sukritabi Mataya, Sahagata Nijapara Bhave. With the mind absorbed and the ego gone, Atman attains Brahman, and the individual enjoys supreme delight with that Brahman, who is associated eternally with his own supreme nature, in tune with his stature and virtuous deeds, but most of the time appears for ordinary people to be inert or absolutely static. Apagatakami, Jagadabirami, Jadaja Samasta Virami, Asukritavame, Vigalita Bhime, Bhita Pavana Ravi Some. This is the 6th stanza. Brahman is free from desire and thereby Krishna is free from desire. He may be the beloved of the world, in spite of the fact he created the world and the whole world loves him, but he is absolutely unattached and free from desire, which the Gopiis are explaining to one another in absolute reconciliation why he disappeared. The terminal point of all things inanimate or born, hostile to non-doers of virtuous deeds, is that Brahman. And Brahman destroys the fearsome ones, namely demons, and is feared by the wind, the sun, and the moon. Thereby we saw the Krishna Leela, where he destroyed in front of all of us the fearsome demons who came to attack us. Pramanam for these 2 stanzas, 5 and 6, came to Tirtha from many verses of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. But once again, due to paucity, let me focus just on one mantra which we all know. Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Lead me from Asat to Sat, from darkness to light, and from mortality to immortality. Asat and Sat have specific philosophical meaning, though they are often translated as unreal and real, which I would believe are misleading. Asat is that which has no state of existence, and Sat is that which has no state of non-existence. In order that we get clarified on this particular aspect, let us see Gita. Na asato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataha. Ubayorapi drishtaha antaha tu anayoho tattva-darshibihi. Those who are seers of truth have concluded that of the non-existence, namely the asat, which is also the material body, there is no endurance, and of the external. Sat, namely the soul, of course there is no change in the soul. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both Sat and Asat. Only the people cognizantly who have the Brahma Vidya can understand what is Sat and Asat. Asat represents the physical part, and the Sat, the eternal subsisting energy which cannot be visualized, excepting that it can be felt. So the first part of the hymn means this: may I be oriented toward the eternal principle of existence instead of the transient worldly pleasures. In the second part, the darkness indicates ignorance and light represents enlightenment. It may be noted that ignorance relates to Asat and enlightenment relates to Sat. Therefore, this part is a repetition of the first part in a different form. Similarly, the word mortality in the last part refers to Asat only and immortality to Sat, going by the imports of Asat and Sat, which we talked about. Let us now see the stanza 7, which is powerfully loaded with several Vedantic interpretations. Vyavahriti line mahad abhidhane bodhalayadi samane. Brahman cannot be comprehended by the three Vyakritis. What are the three Vyakritis? Bhuhu, Bhuvaha and Suvaha. All of you are familiar with this. Bhur, Bhuva, Suvaha. What are those Vyakritis? The earth, the sky and the other world. Other world is a very easy word to explain, but if you go deeper into that, Suvaha can be explained in a different manner. Brahman is the one who is called Mahas, or the fourth of the Vyakritis. In other words, Brahman is beyond the three Vyakritis. He is beyond Bhuhu, Bhuvaha and Suvaha. As is mentioned in Yajurveda, denoting the greatest. That's what Mahas is explained in Yajurveda. As Brahman goes beyond all Vyakritis, he is identified with supreme knowledge and the final merger of the soul with the Brahman. And he is the supreme aspect of Pranava. Not only supreme aspect, he is the fourth supreme aspect of Pranava or Om, one who is understood in his state as the supreme Shiva. This is how it is explained in Upanishads. He who can be realized only upon attaining the level of absorption as supreme as Nada. Pranavaturiye Shivapadameye Nadalaya Vadimane. We will take up that later, but the first part we will do right now. We will see the Pramanam. Vyavahriti line Mahadabidane Bodhalayadi Samane. The very first Pramanam is from Taittiriya Upanishad in 5th Anuvaka, in Sikshavali. He enjoins the contemplation of the Vyakritis as the worlds. Bhuriti va ayam lokaha bhuvayiti antariksham suvaha ityasau lokaha mahayityadityaha adityena bhava sarve lokamagiyante. This is the 5th Anuvaka, Sikshavali, 4th Sloka. The meaning is, Bhu verily is the world. Bhuvaha is the mid-region. Suvaha is the other world. Mahaha can be everything including the sun. By the sun indeed do all worlds excel. Because without the sun, there is no light. Without the light, nothing is visible or can be felt. Thereby, the very first Pramanam here is Adityena vava sarve loka mahiyante. Because gods, the worlds, are all the limbs of Vyakriti Maha, which is the trunk as it were. Therefore, it is said that by the sun the worlds attain growth and so forth. It is indeed by the trunk of the body, simplistically put, that the limbs attain growth. If there is no body, there are no limbs to grow. Thus, the first Vyakriti Bhu should be regarded as the world, as Agni, as the Rigveda, as Prana, and so should the other Vyakritis be regarded each in 4 forms. Vyakriti Maha is the trunk, as it were, Brahman, or the Hiranyagarbha who ensouls the worlds. As the trunk of the body contributes to the growth of the limbs, so in the form of sun, etc., the great Maha or Vyakriti contributes to the growth of the worlds and so on. This is explained as creation. This is another reason Maha is spoken as the Atman. The first reason being that Maha reaches everything, all. Because all worlds fall within the ken of our regard. Maha means to regard with reverence. Only when illumined by the sun, it is very proper that Maha should be regarded as the sun. This is the very first in the Upanishad Vakyam. In Taittiriya, the very first of the 5. The second one says, Bhuriti va agnihi, bhuvaiti vayuhu, suvarityadityaha, mahayiti chandrama, chandramasavava, sarvani jyotim shimahi yante. This is the Shikshavalli 5th sloka. As Bhu verily is Agni, fire, as Bhuvaha is Vayu, the air, as Suvaha is Aditya, the sun, as Mahaha is Chandramas or the moon. By Chandramas, indeed, do all luminaries excel. It is only when the moon shines that all the stars around shine in an excellent form. There are millions and millions and billions of stars. According to this sloka, they all shine because the moon is giving them all the radiance. Then Taittiriya enjoins the contemplation of the Vyakritis as the Vedas. This is the third set. Bhuriti varuchaha, bhuvahiti samani, suvariti yajumshi, mahayiti brahma, brahmana vava sarve veda mahiyante. Bhu verily is the Rig, Bhuvaha is the Samans, and Suvaha is the Yajus, as Mahaha is the Brahman beyond all of them. By Brahman, indeed, do all the Vedas excel. Without Brahman, there is no place for Vedas. Brahman here means the syllable Om. No one else can be meant here where we are concerned with the words, namely the Vedas. The Riks, the Samans, the Yajus refer to the mantras occurring in the 3 Vedas respectively. Brahman here denotes the syllable Om, because without Om, no sloka of Veda, no verse can ever be explained or even recited. By Om, indeed, are all the Vedas are made excellent, inasmuch as the recitation of the Vedas is always eternally preceded by that Pranavanadam. Now, the same Taittiriya Shikshavali enjoins the contemplation of the Vyakritis as prana, namely the life breath. This is the 4th set. Bhuriti vai pranaha, bhuva ityapanaha, suvariti vyanaha, mahayityannam, annena vava sarve prana makiyante. As Bhu verily is the upward life, and as Bhuvaha the downward life, as Suvaha the pervading life, as Mahaha the food. By food, indeed, do all lives excel. Without food, the lives perish. It is only when food is eaten that the cravings of vitality are satisfied, so that we elevate ourselves to the next level of realization or jnanam. Then we go to the final set. The Upanishad concludes its teaching concerning the Vyakritis regarded as the worlds, gods, Vedas, and Prana. And the conclusion is Tavayetas chatasraha chaturdha chatasraha chatasro vyakritayah. you would see so many times the Chatusraya is used. They, namely, those four Vyakritis, Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Suvaha, and Mahaha, are each fourfold, each being in four forms, making it 16, 4 into 4. Reiteration of them as presented above is meant to impress that they should necessarily be contemplated in the previously mentioned subdivisions for understanding. It's not merely to magnify the Vyakritis that I repeated all of this. It is intended to impress that each Vyakriti should be contemplated in its four aspects so that the contemplation may comprehend the Supreme Purusha in his 16 phases as Brahman. The second half of the stanza 7 is Pranavaturiye Shivapadameye Nadalayavadi Mane. Brahman is the fourth supreme aspect of the Pranava Om, one who is understood in his state as the Supreme Shiva. Only he who can be realized only upon attaining the level of absorption as supreme as Nada. Tirtha was inspired by Vayu Purana and Mandukya Upanishad to come up with this sentence, Pranavaturiye Shivapadameye Nadalayavadi Mane. So the two pramanas are from Vayu Purana and Mandukya Upanishad. Om, the Nada, the sound is the combination of the three aksharas, as you know. Akara, Ukara, Makara. The A sound signifies Vishnu, the U sound signifies Shiva, and the Ma sound signifies Brahma. For a very simplistic understanding of this Pranavanada and how they are constituted, you should refer to the beautiful song of Saint Tyagaraja, Yavarani ni Nirnayincherira. Akaro Vishnuruddhishta Ukarastu Maheshwaraha. Makarastu Smruto Brahma Pranavastu Trayatmakaha. Vayupurana says, Akaro Vishnuruddhishta Ukarascha Maheshwaraha. Makarastu Smruto Brahma Pranavastu Trayatmakaha. The sound Om is called Pranava or Brahman. All mantras begin with the sound Om. This sound includes all that has happened and all that is going to happen in this creation. This is what Mandukya Upanishad says. In Katha Upanishad, the pursuit of knowledge and yoga is explained by Dharmaraja to Nachiketas. Sarve Vedayat Padam Amananti Tapamsi Sarvani Sayad Badanti Yadhichanto Brahmacharyam Charanti Tatte Padam Sangrahena Bravimi Om Ityetat. The goal which all the Vedas uniformly extol, which all acts of tapas speak of, and wishing for which men lead the life of a brahmacharin, that goal I tell you briefly, it is this Om. In the very next sloka of the same Kathopanishad, Etat evaksharam brahma, etat evaksharam param, etat evaksharam jnatva, yo yadichyati tasya tat. Adi Shankara gave explanation or vyakyanam for this beautiful sloka. Shankara Bhagavad said, therefore the word indeed is Brahman. Edat evaksharam Brahma. What is Brahman? As we saw, it is manifested. This word indeed is also the highest. Edat evaksharam param, which is Brahman. For this word is the substitute for both of them. Whosoever worships this word as Brahman, what is that word? Om. Obtains what he wants. The manifested or the unmanifested Brahman, in whatever form you need, Om is the passage for that. If it be unmanifested, it should be known. If it be manifested, it should be reached. In other words, the person who obtains Brahman would not want anything more. Mundaka Upanishad said many things. I'll go just only one of them that is closest to this. Yadarchimade yadyat anubhyonu chayasmin loka anihita lokinascha tadetat aksharam brahma sapranaha taduvang manaha tadetat satyam tad amritam tad tedhavyam somya vidhi. What is bright? What is smaller than the small? In what are centered all the world and those that live in them is that immortal Brahman. And that is prana. that which is speech, and that is mind. That is true and immortal, good-looking youth. Strike thy mind upon that which should be struck by the mind. எதை மனசால் கொடுக்க முடியுமோ அடிக்க முடியுமோ அதை மனசால் தான் சாதிக்க வேண்டும். Om has become the standard utterance at the commencement of chants or citations and mantras taken from the Vedas. Brahmanas such as Aitiriya Brahmana and many Upanishads such as Chandogya, Katha, as we saw now, Maitri or Maitrayani Upanishad, Mandukya, Svetasvatara, Ganapati Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita, and many other Puranas explain the sacred Om very elaborately. In Ramayana, in Yuddha Kanda, Valmiki identifies Rama with Brahman and Om. Let us now listen to another beautiful benediction by yet another Gopi extolling the greatness of Krishna, the Brahman. This is actually Sloka 188, after which we will take a pause and then go further to the song.
Panavadaya panim Panavadaya panim Prajapuravanita Panavadaya panim Prajapuravanita Kapikasya pragalpa Grahyam Krishnan Antarbhagiravividatam Swanubhuti Prasiddham Grahyam Krishnan Antarbhagiravividatam Swanubhuti 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 Prasiddham Siddham Siddham Vedagravage Siddham Vedagravage Tadanugunanaye Tadanugunanaye Brahmavitsu Prasiddham Siddham Vedagravage Tadanugunanaye Brahmavitsu Prasiddham Nrityanti Gayatiti Prakriti Varadaram Manato Darshayanti Nrityanti Gayatiti Nrityanti Gayatiti Prakriti Varadaram Manato Darshayanti Manato Darshayanti Darshayanti
This sloka 188 is somewhat similar to 187. In fact, you will see identical expressions. In 187, Narana Tirtha said, Rityanti Gayati iti Prakriti Paradaram Mrigyamanam Mukundaha. But here he says, Rityanti Gayati iti Prakriti Paradaram Manato Darsayanti. Almost identical sentiment, excepting that this is highly Vedantic because the Brahman's qualities are not only noble, it is very much understandable to Gopiis who are uninitiated. The Tirtha gives them an elevated place to say that they are well known to the truly enlightened, in this particular case, the Gopiis. The truly enlightened are those who are knowers of Brahman. Let us see how and where from Tirtha got this special sentiment. Of course, who else than Sukha could have brought out such exquisite sentiment in poetry? Ityevam darshayantyah taschairuhu gopyo vichetasaha Yam Gopim Anayat Krishno Vihayantya Striyo Vane Sachamene Tadatmanam Parittam Sarvayoshitam Hitva Gopi Kamayanamam Asau Bhajate Priyaha. As the gopis wandered about, their minds completely were bewildered. They sang how they were dazed by the earlier experience of Krishna Leela. The particular gopi whom Krishna had led into a secluded forest, when he abandoned all other young girls, began to think herself as the best of women. Who is this particular gopi? Sukha never mentions Radha by name. This particular gopi, according to Jayadeva, the reincarnation of Vyasa, in his Gita Govindam is Radha, on whom he did all the 24 Ashtapatis with Radha-centric. About that, I had already spoken in detail in a prior session. So here, Radha, who is supposed to be beyond jealousy, beyond ego, beyond ahankara, etc., the emphasis is even a person as high and elevated as Radha could get intoxicated when Bhagavan is practically close to her. For a split second, she thought, I am the best of women. My beloved has rejected all other gopis, and see, he is after me. Even though the other gopis are driven by Cupid himself, Krishna has chosen to reciprocate that sentiment only with me and me alone. The more and more I think of his enchanting face, I become ecstatic. Wherever I look at, I only see Krishna. But here what happens is, she also loses Krishna in the process. And then she starts lamenting. Her poetry is different than the other gopis, the way they are pining and singing. Another great poet who followed Sukha and Narana Tirtha in this prism of expression poured his heart out in a great song in Tamil. You know who that great Kavi is. Oothakada Venkata Kavi becomes that fortunate but crestfallen gopi, singing her heart out to other gopis that wherever she turns, there is Krishna.
பாகடியும் முகம் நினைந்து நினைந்து உள்ளம் பரவசமிகளாகுதே பாகடியும் முகம் நினைந்து நினைந்து உள்ளம் பரவசமிகளாகுதே கண்டா பாகடியும் முகம் நினைந்து நினைந்து உள்ளம் பரவசமிகளாகுதே கண்டா பாகடியும் முகம் நினைந்து மனவந்து நோக்கினோம் வானம் கட்டில் சற்றே மனம் வந்து நோக்கினோம் வானம் கட்டில் சற்றே மனம் வந்து நோக்கினோம் மோனமுகம் தெளிவான கண்ணீர் கடத்தில் சிந்தனை வாழினோம் சிரித்த முகம் காணித்தே தெளிவான கண்ணீர் கடத்தில் சிந்தனை வாழினோம் சிரித்த முகம் காணித்தே காரகுடி குரலில் காந்தவை அங்காரகுடல்வாதை மயங்குதே காரகுடியின் குரலில் காந்தவை அங்காரகுடல்வாதை மயங்குதே விரத்தம் சிறகியமை தவிரத்திலே விரத்தம் சிறகியமை தவிரத்திலே காலமயிலாடு மோட பொய்பாடும் இளநதியோடு வனத்திலே காலமயிலாடு மோட பொய்பாடும் இளநதியோடு வனத்திலே குட முதலை குடையவர் குடிலை குடமுடி கதத்திலே குட முதலை குடையவர் குடிலை குடமுடி கதத்திலே கதிக்கும் மதியில் கயகளில் நடுவமான கலகத்திலே கதிக்கும் மதியில் கணிகத்திலே கணித்தவரிலே என் மானத்தையில் நினைவோடு விரவிதர் கலிந்துருக கருந்தருக கருணை ஆதனி கனவு நினைவினோடு விரவிதரிதரும் கருக பருந்தருக வரும் கருணை ஆதனி
After hearing the Tamil song, you can easily understand how much influence Narana Tirtha, Narayana Bhattadri, and of course, Sukabrahman has placed on Venkatakavi, who was a great scholar as well. He really felt that he was Radha when he sang this song. It is a typical expression gathered from all the prior scholars and saints who had done so much on Krishna Leela. In fact, let us see what Tirtha has to say through another Gopi expressing aloud her sentiment of loss, the way Venkatakavi explained and all others explained earlier. Now it is Narana Tirtha's turn in Geetam 78, which we listen to in the following session. Devadevam Kverti Tam Mrugayamo Vayamiha. Where are we to search for that Bhagavan, Lord of Lords?
Narayana 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 Narayana